A former five-star is changing positions, and it's 100% the right decision. We'll explain why. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well, so please subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Brian Kelly met with reporters on Monday to recap Ole Miss and to preview the Arkansas game. He was asked about the lawsuit filed by Greg Brooks. We'll let you hear Brian Kelly's response to that. Also, a big storyline this week as LSU turns the page to Arkansas is the Hogs starting quarterback Taylen Green. He injured his knee against Tennessee, did not finish that game. Sam Pittman gave an update on the quarterback, and you'll hear from Brian Kelly talking about the impact Taylen Green could have on this game as well. That's all coming up. But I want to start with some news that Brian Kelly shared at his Monday press conference. And I'm not going to bury the lead. I'm going to tell you what it is, and I'm going to get to why this is significant. Trey'Dez Green, five-star tight end signee, freshman, is moving positions to wide receiver. And it is 100% the right decision. Trey'Dez Green had a touchdown reception on Saturday. It was LSU's first touchdown, a 12-yard touchdown reception from Garrett Nuss. It was his second touchdown of the season, caught one earlier this year against Nichols as well. And on the season, Trey'Dez Green has just 3 catches for 22 yards, and 2 of his catches are touchdowns. 2 of his 3 catches are touchdowns. He is a problem in the red zone. He's a 6'6", 240-pound freak. Anyway, I want to get to why that's significant. Many of you can understand, but I want to give you some context here. So Brian Kelly Monday was asked about the receivers getting separation in the second half. And I'll play this answer for you. And it's 35 seconds, and there's nuance. So I'm really going to ask you to pay attention because there's 2 things that Brian Kelly mentions receivers have to do to get separation. And I want to come back and talk about that because it's going to explain why LSU is where it is in this situation with their receiving core. Okay, so again, Brian Kelly was asked how his receivers started getting separation against Ole Miss in the second half.
Yeah, so it was a lot of cover two. It was a lot of 2 and 2 trails. So we needed time in the pocket, and we needed to get our guys across the field. So you can attack them one of 2 ways. You can go vertical down the field, or you can work your way across the field in a lot of 2 deep coverages. And this was getting across the field essentially and gaining separation. And that's kind of what you saw in the second half, is that we were working routes that were taking time to get across the field, but eventually they were getting open.
Okay. A couple of things here. Brian Kelly started by saying we're seeing a lot of cover 2. That means there was 2 safeties instead of going a single high safety and maybe bringing another player to the box. Pro Football Focus, when they charted this game, showed Ole Miss brought a blitz on 34% of their defensive snaps, meaning 2/3 of the defensive snaps, 2/3 they were playing coverage. They were not bringing numbers into the box, meaning it was going to be harder in theory, for your receivers to get open. Now, we could also say, well, wait, if they don't have numbers in the box, shouldn't you have been able to run the ball? Yes, and that's discouraging. Ole Miss's defensive front is really good, and even though they didn't stop the run with numbers, they stopped the run because they were better than your offensive line. That's disappointing, but don't miss the point. The point is, Ole Miss was playing coverage. So why did Garrett Nuss struggle so much in the first half? Well, Ole Miss was dropping guys into coverage. They were double teaming guys, and LSU is running slower developing routes because, as Brian Kelly said, to get separation, you either have to go vertical, meaning run past them, or you have to come across the field, run by them, trick them with your routes as you're coming across. Well, to run vertical means you just run past them, right? The slower developing routes, as Kelly said, coming across the field, that takes time and precision and good route running and a lot of things. So why isn't LSU going vertical? Now, they attempted passes down the field. Garrett Nussmeier was 2 of 16 passing. I'm sorry, 4 of 16. Forgive me. 4 of 16 passing against Ole Miss when passes went beyond 20 yards. So LSU threw the ball in the air 20 yards or more 16 times in that game. They attempted passes downfield, which tells you Nussmeier had time to throw because his offensive line is great. And number 2, they were trying to stretch the field, but they didn't have a lot of success. By the way, 2 of the completions, the touchdown to Aaron Anderson, the game-winning touchdown to Kyron Lacey. Anyway, why aren't you running vertical? Because you don't have a receiver capable of doing it. That's the problem right now. That's why we've talked so much about Chris Hilton, who has this truly elite track speed, who is the take the top off the defense guy, like Brian Thomas was a year ago. If you're a Saints fan, like Rashid Shaheed is for the Saints, the guy that I don't care how fast your fast guy is, if he's backpedaling and our guy runs by him, he ain't catching up. That's Chris Hilton. So if you don't have that guy, right, and you've got C.J. Daniels and Kyra Lacey, who are very good receivers. Daniels didn't play in this game. Good route runners, very polished receivers. Aaron Anderson and Xavier Thomas, guys who are better around the line of scrimmage, can make you miss, but maybe not the truly elite top-end speed. And also, they're 5'10". Well, you have to find a way to create a mismatch. Yes, absolutely, Chris Hilton can be that guy, but he hasn't been healthy. I think Shelton Sampson is an option. Now, listen, Shelton had 1 target in this game, and it was a choice route. He cut off the route. Garrett thought he was going to continue, and there was that miscommunication, and Garrett nearly got picked off. So maybe you can't trust Shelton Sampson like that, but can you say, hey, 6'4" fast guy, run down the field, we're going to throw you a 50-50 ball? Maybe. Like, again, you're trying to find ways that you can create matchup issues, because Aaron Anderson and Xavier Thomas have been very good, but they're not a matchup problem. They're 5'10", and they don't have super high-end speed or great size. Lacey and Daniels are very good receivers, but again, it's hard for them to get separation because they don't have top-end speed, and they lack some of that ability. So if Chris Hilton's not back and you don't have a true top-end speed guy, how do you create a mismatch? Oh, I have an idea. Put the 6'7", 240-pound guy at receiver, and Brian Kelly acknowledged on Monday that's exactly what they're going to do.
There is, and quite frankly, I think that's what we have to do. We're probably in a position now where watching him play. All of the complexities of playing the tight end position can be eliminated by, getting him more in a wide receiver role. And I think we're getting to that point where we've made that decision that has to happen. He's a talented player. We saw him on the touchdown, how easy it is for him to flash his hands and catch the football. And he just gives us more versatility. So, I think you're going to see that moving forward.
Yeah. Giant catch radius, 6'7", 240, has the body like a power forward, box out on a 5'11", 6-foot-tall defensive back where you have 7-8 inches of height on him, throw the ball up. Yes, you're creating a mismatch and a bigger target for Garrett Nussmeier. And as Brian Kelly said, you're eliminating a lot of the complexities of tight end. He doesn't have to block. He doesn't have to learn all these different, just put him in the slot, flex him out, teach him his route concepts, and throw him the football. Like, I'm oversimplifying it, but there's no reason that shouldn't be part of your offense. When you have a guy that is that dynamic of a weapon, that has that skill set, that is not replicated on this team anywhere else. Kamori and Pimpton for sure, but among your receivers, you don't have a receiver that is like Trey'Dez Green. So yes, when you're looking for ways to get Garrett Nussmeier mismatches to create separation or get him easier throws so he's not throwing into coverage, into tight windows, put the 6'7" guy on the field in the slot and just tell him to run 10 yards and turn around and throw it to him. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but that would certainly create mismatches that you don't currently have in your receiving core. It also speaks to how good Garrett Nussmeier has been. to continue to find these open guys and how good the receivers have been when they've had the opportunities to catch passes from Garrett Nuss. Now, I'm going to step aside. Brian Kelly did also give an update on CJ Daniels and Chris Hilton. I want to get to that as we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. It has been really cool getting a lot of your feedback about Roy. So each week here, we recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far, this season, we've pooled more than $10,000 to support players on Roy. These are micro deposits that lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes that you love, ensuring all funds go to the specific player that you choose. This is not like collectives. You know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. And the best part, it's risk-free. This is important. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, I'm supporting Wit Weeks. Just pitched in $100, and I'd love for you to join me. Even $10 makes a difference. Let's show Wit Weeks the love and keep him connected to LSU. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets up the team for success. Plus, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Roy, R-O-Y. Download Roy, create an account, enter the referral code LOCKEDON, and you're entered. If you're already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Download Roy now. Join the NIL game with no subscriptions, no fees, and be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy. That's R-O-Y. Roy_return on you. That's at Roy_return on you for more information. Roy, support players and change the game. So Brian Kelly was asked on Monday about for an injury update on CJ Daniels and Chris Hilton, a couple of receivers who have been injured. Now you're going to hear the answer, and then there's also a follow-up question where he was asked. The follow-up, which is off mic, you can't hear. The follow-up question was about Trey'Dez Green. So listen, the first part of this is about Hilton and Daniels.
Well, I hope to get a couple of receivers back, at least. I think Daniels has got a really good chance of being back. Chris is a day-to-day situation for us, but I'm pretty certain that we'll augment the wide receiver position this week. I think that's what I think we're most looking forward to is getting some bodies back at that position. Well, no, that's one. But we're going to get some of the injured receivers. We're going to get somebody back, whether it's CJ or whether it's Chris. Somebody's coming back from one of those two guys.
So that'll be interesting to see. That's definitive, saying one of those two is coming back. I know there's been a lot of questions about Chris Hilton, and we've talked about it here. He's a guy that's dealing with that injury, the lower leg injury, the foot injury that he's been dealing with since the end of fall camp. And as we've told you, he's medically cleared. It's a pain tolerance and a comfort thing. And I don't mean to paint that as, well, Chris Hilton isn't tough. That's not the point. We just got done talking about the thing Chris Hilton brings you is the ability to run really fast and stretch the defense. If he's not able to do that, then what does he do? So I know it's been frustrating, certainly for everyone, for him, most of all, not to be on the field. But it would be phenomenal if you get him back. But at this point, I also understand. I don't think you can count on that until you see him. I certainly thought when he didn't play against USC, you wouldn't play him against Nichols and hope to have him back against South Carolina. He didn't return for that game. He dressed against UCLA, but was limping and didn't play. And then he hasn't dressed since. So hopefully you get him back at some point, but I think it's just you don't count on it. When you get him back, you do. And then CJ Daniels, as Brian Kelly told us, was battling a knee injury. Thankfully, they got good news on that. Maybe CJ Daniels will be back this week as well. But you're looking for guys in that passing offense that can help bring dimensions you don't currently have. And if you're not going to have Chris Hilton to stretch the field, your best options would be Shelton Sampson and I'm blanking. Forgive me. It's the small, short freshman wide receiver who can. Jelani Watkins. My brain just went blank. I'm sorry. Shelton Sampson or Jelani Watkins, who can fly. If you're looking for a guy just to run fast and stretch the defense, one of those two guys might be your best option. Okay, I want to switch gears quickly here from the LSU offense to the Arkansas offense, because one of the storylines we have to follow this week is Taylen Green. If you're not familiar, Taylen Green is the Arkansas quarterback. He's a transfer from Boise State, and he's a very good player. As a matter of fact, if you're looking at Pro Football Focus grades, the rolling grade throughout the season, for example, Jackson in the SEC, Jackson Dart is the highest rated SEC quarterback, followed by Arch Manning, Diego Pavia, Jalen Milroe, then Garrett Nussmeier. After that's Carson Beck, and Taylen Green is 7th. He's 44th nationally. So he's ahead of Peyton Thorne. He's ahead of Brady Cook from Missouri, Quinn Ewers from Texas, Connor Wegman from A&M. So he's a very good player, and he's a dual threat guy as well who can really hurt you with his feet. But Brian Kelly, but this is important because Taylen Green injured his knee in the fourth quarter against Tennessee 2 weeks ago, and he was not able to finish that game. The Arkansas backup is the one that led the game-winning touchdown drive against Tennessee. Well, Arkansas had a bye, an open date this past weekend, so it certainly came at a good time for Taylen Green. Sam Pittman updated Taylen Green's status when he met with reporters on Monday. But first, this was Brian Kelly in his sort of scouting report on Taylen Green.
The quarterback is a unique player in that, first of all, I mean, he is long speed, as fast as anybody that we'll see. So he's got great speed. He's got escapability. And I think he throws it better than the quarterback from South Carolina. So this is a guy that is a real threat. And, you know, we're going to have to really do some things to take away what he likes to do. And, you know, this is a quarterback that when he's on, he's difficult to defend. So this will be a great challenge for our group.
When he's saying the things he likes to do, Taylen Green can run the football, but he's not just a runner. You heard him reference Lenore Sellers from South Carolina. That's how the question was phrased to Brian Kelly, or there's similarities there. Well, Taylen Green has already thrown for 1,500 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's completing 56% of his passes. So this is the sort of boom or bust nature of Taylen Green. He's thrown for 5 touchdowns, but he's also thrown for 5 interceptions. Running the football, 81 rushes for 326. That's 4 yards a carry. But remember, sack yardage counts against the quarterback's rushing total, which is stupid. But he's also run for 4 touchdowns. So Taylen Green can hurt you through the air. He can hurt you on the ground. The one bugaboo for Taylen Green is he has not protected the football. Turnovers cost them against both Texas A&M and against Oklahoma State in their 2 losses, through a pick 6 in that overtime loss to Oklahoma State. So, I mean, it was a weird back-to-back plays at the end of the first half where Green threw what should have been a touchdown pass that was dropped the very next play through a pick 6. So there's you can rattle him and you can force him into mistakes. And LSU has been very good at creating havoc. That's one where havoc would have an impact. But he can hurt you as well if he's healthy. Sam Pittman updated Taylen Green's status on Monday.
It was probably that way, Trey, for everybody on the team. We was trying to get healthy, but yet get some physicality as well on Thursday. Taylen practiced. First was a walkthrough, which he would be practicing whether he was healthy or not, you know, in that. But he's practiced each day. We're hopeful that he'll be ready to go. So I feel like he will, but we'll have to wait and see a little bit more. I probably know a little bit more about Tuesday, Wednesday, but we're hoping that he's ready to play, and we think he'll be able to.
If Taylen Green is not able to play or is not effective, it's a massive development. And this would be akin to what we talked about last week with Trey Harris at Ole Miss, and you saw how that impacted the game. Trey Harris in one half of football had 84 yards and a touchdown. And then weather got a little cooler. Sure, that little happy shot he got in his ankle wore off, and he just was unable to move. So that changed Ole Miss's offense. That's undeniable. The same thing is true with Taylen Green here offensively. with Arkansas. Look, Malachi Singleton is the backup. As I mentioned, he played part of that fourth quarter against Tennessee, and he's a good player as well. I mean, he led that game-winning touchdown drive against Tennessee, but that's a young player who you'd be putting in a very difficult situation as a freshman, a true freshman, if he were to go into the game against LSU. But we'll continue to watch that throughout the course of the week. That is super significant, the health of Taylen Green. And if he goes, but that knee has him limited and he's not able to run and create, then he is severely hampering that Arkansas offense and what they can be. We'll keep you up to date throughout the week as we know more. We'll knock out our final break here of Locked on LSU. When we come back, Brian Kelly responds to the Greg Brooks lawsuit. You'll hear it next. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Love telling you about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season off with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Hey, Tigers are heading up to Fayetteville, 2.5-point favorites. Think the LSU Tigers get it done with ease? You can lay those 2.5 points. You can bet at FanDuel. Find your favorite wager, whatever it may be, over at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Again, get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You know where it is. That's at FanDuel. We told you over the weekend when we had an episode dedicated to the lawsuit that former LSU safety Greg Brooks filed against LSU, Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center, excuse me. We had a full episode dedicated to that lawsuit, what I know, what I have known, what I don't know, and just explanations. I would recommend, if you're interested, maybe go back and listen to that episode just a few episodes ago, or watch on YouTube. A short 15-minute episode or so telling you what we know and fill in it for all those, because a lot of people have asked about Greg Brooks, and understandably so. If you're just finding this episode and you're not familiar, the very, very abbreviated Cliff's Notes is that Greg Brooks is a kid from New Orleans who started his career at Arkansas, transferred to LSU when Brian Kelly got here in 2022, played the 22 season, returned in 23, and 2 games into the season had a medical episode and didn't play again. And we would later learn that Greg Brooks had a brain tumor and was having symptoms in fall camp. The symptoms went away. He played a couple of games. And then after those games, of course, was rushed into brain surgery when the scans discovered the tumor. And now, a year later, according to the lawsuit, which was initially reported by Yahoo Sports, still has not been able to walk, does not have use of his right hand. The suit claims that Brooks is, quote, permanently disabled and will need help for the rest of his life. So it's an absolutely terrible situation. But Brian Kelly is named in the lawsuit, along with LSU team doctors, LSU, and as we mentioned, Our Lady of the Lake, the surgeon that performed the procedure on Brooks. And Brian Kelly was asked over the weekend when the report came out, or on Friday, I should say. Both LSU and Our Lady of the Lake released brief statements, which are included in the previous episode I discussed. But on Monday, Brian Kelly was asked for comment on the lawsuit, and here's what he said.
No, I mean, I think it's well known, and we've talked about the love that we have, our entire team, for Greg Brooks. A leader, beloved by his teammates, and will continue to have that. But unfortunately, lawsuits come out in our culture, in our society every day, and it is what it is, but it doesn't change the way we feel about Greg, and our support is going to be there. We hope and pray for only the best for him. But when it comes to lawsuits, our kids, players, coaches, we just really focus on Greg and hope and pray that he's one, and the guy that we focus on, and we stay away from anything that has legal ramifications.
I'm not sure Brian Kelly could have said much more. Certainly not going to comment on the particulars of the allegations or anything along those lines, nor should he. You'll leave that to lawyers and what may come of all that. But the focus should be on Greg Brooks and the full allotment of LSU's resources, to whatever extent that is. This should go without saying, but I'm going to say it. The full extent of LSU's resources should be there and exercised to assist Greg Brooks and his family in any way possible. From lodging during hospital stays, transportation if need be, obviously the medical expenses. And I would certainly hope that's the case. But you fear with something like this that it's a long way from over. And as there are updates, we'll continue to follow it. But I don't know that I have much more to say. I did do a full episode on it. Would encourage you to go check that out if you're interested. Now I will clumsily transition, because I don't know how to transition from something very serious to the relatively mundane and insignificant, which football is when you're talking about a young person's life. But it is game week, and it's a gigantic game for LSU and Arkansas this week, as LSU's coming off a massive win over Ole Miss, and a win that is one we'll remember forever, but the significance of that win is muted if you don't go to Arkansas and win. It's like in '97 when LSU upset number 1 Florida, and the next week lost to Ole Miss. We can go all the way back to 1959. Many people may forget or not know this, but LSU beat Ole Miss on Billy Cannon's Halloween night run. A week later, they lost to Tennessee, which cost them back-to-back national championships. There's so many instances like that. LSU in 2007, beating Florida, that great game in Tiger Stadium. A week later, losing in triple overtime to Kentucky. So 2 years ago, you beat Alabama in overtime, a dramatic game. That wasn't the next week, but you did end up losing at the end of that season to a 4-win Texas A&M team. They were 4-7 at the time. They beat you to finish 5-7. So you got to make sure you're ready to play and you go take care of business this weekend against Arkansas. It's going to be a tough game. Arkansas is coming off a bye. They get sky high to play you every time, no matter, even when they're bad. And this is actually a pretty good Arkansas team. So hopefully they have LSU's undivided attention. The Tigers can go on the road and get it done against the Hogs. We'll follow it, cover it all throughout the week. Hey, thanks so much for being here with us. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. Now for your second listen, how about Locked On SEC for your second listen? Check out my guy, Chris Gordy, as he covers all things SEC. You can find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hey, if you're on podcast, please subscribe on that favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and be sure to let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.